If you turn on the news today, they will tell you that everything is fine. They will show you charts moving up and to the right. They will tell you that unemployment is at historic lows, that inflation has been defeated, and that the American consumer is stronger than ever. But then you turn off the TV. You look at your grocery receipt. You look at your rent notice. You look at your savings account, or what's left of it, okay? And you realize that the math simply doesn't add up. There is a massive, widening disconnect between the reality on the government spreadsheets and the reality on the street. It is a phenomenon that some economists are whispering about in private, but are terrified to say in public. It's called the silent depression. We are living through an economic crisis that, in many ways, rivals the Great Depression of the 1930s. But unlike the 1930s, you can't see this one in the official data. You can't see it because over the last 40 years, the people in charge didn't fix the economy. They fixed the formulas used to measure it. They aren't just lying to you about the future. They are gaslighting you about your present. And today, we are going to look at the raw, unmanipulated numbers to prove that you aren't crazy, you're just being measured by a broken ruler. To understand what's happening now, we have to understand what a depression actually looks like. When we think of the Great Depression, we think of visible misery. We think of 25% unemployment, soup kitchens, and shantytowns. It was undeniable. It was physical. Today, the misery is invisible. It is digital. It is hidden behind credit card debt, buy now, pay later apps, and the gig economy. The breadline hasn't disappeared. It's just moved onto a credit card server. But the feeling is exactly the same. The average person today has less purchasing power, less savings, and less hope for homeownership than they did during some of the worst economic downturns in history. Yet, the data capital D says we are winning. How is this possible? It comes down to a concept called economic gaslighting. This is the deliberate manipulation of statistics, specifically the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and the unemployment rate, to paint a picture of prosperity over a rotting foundation. To see how this happened, we have to go back in time. We have to go back to the moment the definitions changed. We have to go back to 1980, and the year the government decided that the best way to cure a fever was to smash the thermometer. Let's travel back to 1980. The United States was in the grip of a massive inflation crisis. Prices were skyrocketing. Mortgage rates hit 18%. It was painful. But back then, the government measured inflation simply and honestly. They used a fixed basket of goods. They took the same steak, the same house, the same car, and the same gallon of milk. If that basket cost $100 in January and $114 in December, inflation was 14%. Simple, brutal, but true. This honesty had consequences. Because Social Security payments and government pensions were tied to inflation through COLA, cost of living adjustments, the government had to pay out billions more every time inflation went up. Fast forward to the 1990s. The U.S. government faced a mathematical nightmare. The national debt was growing, and those automatic Social Security adjustments were threatening to bankrupt the Treasury. Washington needed a way to lower the inflation number without actually lowering prices. Enter the Boskin Commission of 1996. This was a group of economists hired by the government who argued that the CPI was overstating inflation. They claimed the old math was too simple. They proposed changing the methodology entirely. They introduced new variables, complex academic theories that fundamentally altered reality. They implemented changes that allowed statisticians to say prices were stable even when they were skyrocketing. They didn't fix the cost of living. They just redefined what living meant. And that decision is the primary reason why today a six-figure salary feels like minimum wage. So, how do they do it? How do they turn double-digit inflation into a harmless 3%? Once you see these three magic tricks, you will never trust a government report again. The first trick is called substitution. In the old days, if the price of steak went up, the CPI went up. Under the new math, The government assumes that if steak gets too expensive, you, the rational consumer, will simply switch to hamburger meat. So they replace the steak in the basket with hamburger. If hamburger gets too expensive, they swap it for chicken, then pork, then, eventually, dog food. By substituting expensive items for cheaper ones, they can claim the cost of living hasn't gone up. But they ignore the fact that your standard of living has plummeted. They are measuring the cost of survival, not the cost of living. The second trick is called hedonics, or the quality adjustment. This is the most absurd manipulation. Let's say a new car costs $50,000, but the government says, wait. This new car has a better touchscreen, heated seats, and safer brakes. We value those improvements at $15,000. So, according to their math, the price of the car didn't go up. It technically went down by $5,000 because you got more value. Try telling that to your bank account. You cannot eat quality improvements. You cannot pay rent with better pixels. Yet, this adjustment suppresses the official inflation rate every single month. The third and final trick is owner's equivalent rent. Housing is the biggest expense for almost everyone. But remarkably, the CPI ignores actual house prices. Instead, the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls homeowners and asks them a hypothetical question. If you were to rent out your home today, how much do you think you could get for it? It's a guess. It's imaginary. While actual house prices doubled or tripled in the last decade, this survey data moved at a snail's pace. This artificially kept inflation low while the housing market became unaffordable for an entire generation. Now, let's peel back the curtain. What happens if we strip away the substitution, the hedonics, and the imaginary rent? What happens if we apply the honest 1980 math to today's economy? We don't have to guess. Economists like John Williams at Shadowstats have been tracking this for years. According to the 1980 methodology, inflation in the last few years wasn't 9% at its peak. It was likely closer to 18% or 20%, and right now, when they say inflation is back down to 3%, the real number is likely closer to 8% or 10%. This explains everything. This explains why you effectively took a pay cut even if you got a 5% raise. This explains why credit card debt in America has smashed through the $1 trillion ceiling. This explains why people are working 2 or 3 jobs and still falling behind. And it's not just inflation. It's unemployment, too. The official unemployment rate is often cited near historic lows around 4%. But this is the U3 rate. It conveniently ignores discouraged workers, people who have given up looking for work because they couldn't find any. It ignores the millions forced into part-time gig work who want full-time careers. If we count the unemployed the way we did during the Great Depression, measuring everyone who wants a full-time job but can't find one, the real unemployment rate today is estimated to be between 20% and 25%. That number should chill you to the bone. 25%. That is the exact same unemployment figure as the height of the Great Depression in 1933. We are in a silent depression, where the top 10% own the asset stocks and real estate which are inflated by printed money. Meanwhile, the bottom 90% earn wages that are systematically devalued by that same printed money. What happens when a society is run on false data? Eventually, the gap between the map and the territory becomes too wide to ignore. You can gaslight the people, but you cannot gaslight the math forever. We are seeing the consequences unfold in real time. First, we are witnessing the death of the middle class. We are moving toward a neo-feudal system, a small class of asset owners and a massive class of renters and subscribers who own nothing and pay for everything. Second, we are seeing a collapse of trust, when people feel the poverty in their bones, but the politicians and news anchors tell them they are rich, society fractures. This is why we see the rise of populism, civil unrest, and radical political shifts across the globe. People know the system is broken, even if they can't articulate exactly how. And finally, the correction. You cannot fake gravity forever. Eventually, the manipulated numbers will collide with reality. This usually ends in a currency crisis or a massive deflationary crash where the fake wealth evaporates overnight. If we continue to use a broken ruler to measure our economy, we won't fix the house. We'll watch it collapse while arguing about the measurements. The reason I'm telling you this isn't to scare you. It's to validate you. If you feel like you're working harder than ever but falling further behind, you aren't crazy. If you feel like the numbers on the news belong to a different planet, you aren't wrong. If you feel like the system is rigged against your savings, you are right. You are living through a silent depression. The first step to surviving it is to stop listening to what they say is happening and start looking at what is actually happening. Don't let them gaslight you. Trust your eyes. Trust your wallet. This channel exists to uncover the mechanics of the global economy, the stuff they leave out of the textbooks and the nightly news. If you want to protect your wealth and understand the truth behind the data, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We are just getting started unwinding this story. I'm Economy Rewind. Thanks for watching.